with the flames going around and slamming on the floor and going.
So it was lit on the end?
Yes.
What?
You know, like the same thing that happened with the hose with the water when it's on and the water goes everywhere.
But it was fire.
But it was fire.
Whoa.
After that, I said, maybe we should do smaller parties next time.
Yeah, let's change it up. He's the winner of Masterchef Season 4, and he's also an Italian who left his home country in his early 20s to pursue the American dream. But at that time, he didn't know what the dream was. You see, he grew up in the restaurant business, working in Italy, Australia, Florida, and New York, and he had the privilege and honor to work with some really amazing chefs, experiencing ingredients and techniques from different cuisines, from Japanese to French to modern American, and then of course, Italian. Now he can tell you that each person can be in charge of his or her own dream because he's living proof that that is possible. That's the kind of magic that he made in his life. His dream, though, keeps changing, and he's not really sure what he wants to be when he grows up. But right now, he enjoys being a dad and a husband. And he's got some kids, and he's so devoted to his kids and his wife, and he's a really amazing family man. And I think you all will be inspired and entertained by his unique and amazing story about following the American dream and becoming a success story. I think you'll enjoy my fun interview with my friend Luca. Check it out. Hey Luca, welcome to the Making Magic podcast. Thanks so much for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yes, this is going to be fun. We're going to have a casual chat here. Now, I met you, what is it, at least 8 years ago? This is Masterchef.
Long time ago, 8 years, yes.
Masterchef Season 4.
Yep.
And this is so crazy how everything's coming full circle. You know, with the pandemic, it's kind of hard to meet in person, but at least we're reconnecting again this way, right?
Technology helps a lot.
Tech helps, and you have blossomed into, you know, you're following your passion. You've got this dinner with Luca thing going on. Is that your main thing that you're doing right now?
Yes, dinner with Luca. It started right after the show, so I started 8 years ago, and it's going great. At the beginning was mostly from people who watch me on the show. Mm-hmm. And now, because of technology and also because of 2020 COVID pandemic, people got, they were home all the time, so they binge watch a lot of shows, and MasterChef, I guess, was one of them because the amount of emails and messages I get on social media are, I would say, as much, if not more, of when the show was aired the first time 8 years ago.
Wow.
So, consequence of that, people that look me up, now they see the dinner with Luca. So the business, I would say, last year picked up a lot, but also because I've been doing it for so many years, and now with the internet and reviews and stuff, people look me up as a private chef in the area.
Great.
And many of them, they don't know about MasterChef, which I like it a lot. People hire me just because they see very good reviews online about the business. But yeah, I mean, it's things changed a lot last year. People traveled way less, right? Mm-hmm. Many months the restaurants were closed or they have limited capacity. And so people say, okay, we're going to have something, we're going to make a small party at home.
Nice.
So yeah, 8 years. And it's exciting. I never thought actually it was going to last so much.
Well, that's just proof of concept that it's working, and you just keep doing what's working, right?
Exactly.
Excellent. So the way I normally kick off this show is I have my guests tell me about a story of the first thing that they've ever made. So with prop builders, it would be their first prop, or with scientists, it might be their first breakthrough discovery. So Luca, being a chef, you're making things all the time. You're making new preps. You're making hors d'oeuvres, appetizers, entrees, desserts. So if you could take my audience back to the beginning, when you first had your love for cooking, whenever that was, and if you could share the first prep that you've ever made.
I tell you the funny story, because my friends have a lot of them, and many of them after the show they would say like, I cannot believe you want a cooking show, because back in the days when I cooked for them, it was always a disaster.
Okay.
I remember once we made a plate of pasta. I didn't have pasta of the same type, and I put two different pasta that have completely different cooking times in the same pot. So one was completely overcooked, and the other one was raw. Right, it was very hard. Or the famous, my friends still make fun of me. It was actually in a newspaper in Italy, a local newspaper. After I won the finale, I come from a very small area.
Okay.
And anyway, the national newspaper covered it as well, but not as much as the local newspapers.
Okay.
To tell you a funny story, I was in Italy to make some events the December after the show aired, which was in September. Mm-hmm. And there was a piece of me in the local newspaper. It's a big newspaper. It's like a daily newspaper, like local. There were 25 days in a row they talked about me. And I was making fun of them in social media. I was like, you're nothing else. Nothing happens in this town. Eh? You just follow me around and see what's up. But anyway, in one of the big articles, they gave me like the first page the day after the finale. And they went to collect interviews with my friends and family. And one of my friends was mentioning the day that I make the carbonara. I invited people over. I made a carbonara, and it was spaghetti with scrambled eggs. So it shows, that it's a craft that I would say anybody can learn, right?
Right.
And takes just a little bit of practice, or a lot of practice, actually, a lot of experience, a lot of trying over and over again. But, yes. 20 years ago, nobody would have thought that I was going to win a culinary show, or that I could cook as a living,
Right. Right. So the pasta with eggs was the new carbonara.
Carbonara, scrambled eggs. And I was so confused. It's like, why is it? Why is it? I didn't probably never even made scrambled eggs in my life, So it's like,
wow. So much has happened since the scrambled eggs incident and the pasta misappropriation.
That was like 20 years ago. So after that, I left. I came in the States. Then when I started working in restaurants, because I always work in restaurant, but I was a front of the house guy. Okay. So I was a server for many years, and then I became a manager. But that's when the passion for great food really, exploded, because it was always around good food. Like in Italy, we eat very well.
Yes.
My mother is a phenomenal cook. My grandmothers were both very, very good cooks. So
nice.
It was used, right, of eating good home style food. But then in New York, I got to work with very good chefs in very nice restaurants. And I was able, to look at what they were doing in the kitchen and learn also as a manager, as a server as well. Mm-hmm. But as a manager even more, it was very important for me to have a almost perfect knowledge on the food preparation, because as a let's say between the dining room and the kitchen was us, right? So in order to fulfill and to earn the trust of the customer about the food,
Okay.
it was very good. It's important to know how the food is made. First, let's say you have somebody with allergies, right?
Right.
You wanna have them. You want them to understand right away that you are on top of it, and you're very confident on the food, right? But also, I always seen the people in the dining room as salesperson, especially in America where you earn a lot with the tips, which are a percentage from the check, right? So very good to know about the dish, because you're able to present it in a better way to sell it, basically. It's like a romance, I remember we had this beautiful fettuccine with lobster and black truffle. It was the most expensive thing in the menu, and I sold it a lot. Did I sell it because it was the most expensive item in the menu? No, I sold it because I really thought it was delicious and I really loved the dish, and I was able to put my enthusiasm for the dish to the customers. So that a consequence of that, studying the menu, the components of the dishes and the preparation, it gave me the ability to go home and practice and make the same food. And then go back to the chef the next day and say, hey, chef, my salmon skin didn't come as crispy as yours. What did I do wrong, right? So we would have a conversation. And the chefs loved it, because they always thought, a few chefs I work with, they always said, like, I never found anybody from the front of the house that is so excited and interested of what we are doing here in the kitchen. So for me, and I never been to culinary school, obviously, or to a hotel management school, right? But that was better. That was better than any school, because I could see hands-on, day-to-day preparation.
Yeah, you were right there. You were dropped right into it. The phrase in America, they say, thrown to the wolves. It seems to me that was the direction you were headed all along, and it's just kind of, you had to start somewhere. But clearly, if you're working the front of the house and you keep going back to the kitchen and keep wanting to talk to the cooks, that's kind of, seems like that's the end goal direction that you want to be anyway. So, most people, like from what I've seen, most people take a front of the house job just because maybe they just need a job and they just need some work, and they don't really truly care about either the restaurant or the food. They don't have a true passion.
It depends a lot also the type of the establishment. And I noticed that a lot when I came here from Italy. In Italy, 20 years ago, working in restaurants was a career. There's no culinary school as a college in Italy. The culinary school is a high school. So you get that preparation as a professional right out of the high school, and then you go and work in the restaurants. The preparation is very different, because while you go to high school and study to become a cook, half of the year you are working in restaurants as well, part of the school program. So
that's great.
When I came here, I noticed right away, especially in New York, there were actors and models, and I don't know, I work as a babysitter during the day and I make more money at night.
Musicians,
right? Musician, probably.
Probably, yes.
But when you go to a certain level of restaurants, there are people that do it as a profession because they love it. I'm talking about like Michelin star restaurants,
right?
Or I'm talking about restaurants that are in the map as best restaurants in the world or best restaurants in America. So in that category, yes, but that's you're right. It is a small percentage of the entire restaurants in America where It is the number one most paid non-professional job in America.
Which, front of house?
Front of the house.
Interesting.
Servers make a lot of money in tips. That's one of the reasons why even I was a manager when I realized that I liked cooking more, but as a general manager, the salaries in New York City are very good.
Sure.
You do work easily 60 hours, 65 hours a week, easily, right? But you know, the time of my life, it didn't bother me. It was easy to do. But that was one of the reasons why, even if I thought I would love to work in a kitchen, right? I never made the jump because the pay cut was going to be incredibly different. So I'm lucky because of Masterchef, I was able to jump all, those years of that usually people do in the kitchen before they can get to a certain level.
Yes.
That's why I never ended up doing a restaurant, because I think that the sacrifice is incredible. And I have 2 young kids and a wife. So the private dining, the private chefing I'm doing is way more comfortable, because I'll do it. Also, it's called Dinner with Luca. So it's not a business that is expendable. Without Luca, there's no Dinner with Luca. So whenever I take a night off, a vacation, the business stops. But
right.
But it's okay. It's part of the, I would say, the flexibility. Also because during the week I'm home with the kids. From Monday to Friday, I take care of the kids. We also homeschool. So I could never do that if I was working in a restaurant full time. Even if I worked only, but if I owned it, it would be even worse.
Yes, owning a restaurant is a way bigger task than most people think. I have worked in tandem with other restaurant owners. I've gone in the manager's office. I've seen the massive lists of to-do on their wall, and they don't get enough credit, I believe, because it's a very difficult job to run a restaurant. And just the fact that, Gordon Ramsay runs like 16 or something, or probably more.
No, 20, more like 25, but he doesn't run them anymore, He got to a point where he has an incredible, a very big team. Also, it's kind of impossible to run so many restaurants on your own, right?
Right.
But when you get to a certain level, you have a lot of people working for you. It's just that there is not many Gordon Ramsays in the world. There are a lot of restaurant people that day in and day out are in the restaurant working, serving table, and then you do it because you're passionate and because you love it, right?
Yes.
But it's a very, very, very hard job.
Yes. So on that note, what did you learn from your earlier experiences specifically that helped you further down the line where you are right now? Do you have any? Let's just pick one of the most important things that you've learned from your experiences in the beginning that's kind of stuck with you.
So right after Masterchef, the first question that people ask you is like, when are you going to open your restaurant? Right? What are you going to do now? Are you going to open the restaurant? When are you going to open the restaurant? And I, let's say, rode on that wave. I was riding that boat, and I was in the mindset that because I won the show, now I should be a chef. And that was a very, very big mistake. No matter what, I didn't open a restaurant, but I opened a food truck.
Okay.
And the food truck was very successful. But wait, let me rephrase that. The food truck was very appreciated. but was not very successful as far as business and money.
Financially successful, yeah.
Exactly. It wasn't financially successful. The press loved that. The food critics in town loved us. We had only 5-star reviews, but the business concept of the food truck was not very sustainable because there was too many expenses, right? Too many expenses.
Understood.
What I learned from that were two things. The first one is that nobody is a chef after 3 months of a reality show. Nobody. But like nobody's a chef even after working 5 years in a restaurant. You know, you can learn, you can work hard and try to achieve certain things, right? Mm-hmm. But it's one of those businesses, and nobody's a chef when they come out from culinary school. So that's right, actually. It's better to work for 4 years in a restaurant than go for 4 years in a culinary school, because you learn much more.
Yes.
You're not like $100,000 in debt.
Yes, that too, yes.
Because when you finish culinary school, you go in a restaurant and you're still gonna get lower wage, the minimum wage, right?
They don't
even
care.
If you have a degree, right?
Yep.
So, but what I learned was that I wished I didn't take that wave of everybody wanted you, which I'm not blaming on other people. I'm blaming it just on me, right?
Sure.
But that was, and there's something, you know, that Gordon Ramsay told me one day, and back then I took it as a kind of personal, as an offense, and now I see it as I wished I listened more to him and I put my ego aside. Because when we met after the show, we met in Los Angeles because we were filming something else. It was me, him, and Joe, and we were exploring ideas about the restaurant. And their idea was for me to run one of their restaurants as a manager. Mm-hmm. And Ramsay told me, it's like, you know, don't think that now you have to become a chef. You are a restaurant manager. You were a manager before you came. And he said, Luca, your personality is much better than your food. Mm. And I took that as an offense, right? Mm-hmm. Because let's be honest, you get into this vibe of the Masterchef and people blow you up on social media and stuff. Yep. And you're kind of like full of shit. Okay. Then luckily it took me a few years to come down to earth. Right. Right. And I tell people to not call me chef. I don't like it. It's now we are blowing up. We this profession has been like looked because of social media, but also television. Mm-hmm. It's been looked in a certain way, like chef is such a important role. I always say, like, yes, you call doctors, right? When you say a doctor, you call a doctor, but you don't go out and call somebody, hey, plumber John, hey, electrician Willie. That's true. Right? No, but everybody now is called a chef. It's like, why is this job, which is a cook, came to this kind of goddess, you know, ideology, right? And at the end of the day, first of all, I don't want to generalize. There are incredible chefs all over the world, in America, in the fine dining, you know, fine dining establishment, right? Mm-hmm. But there's also a great majority of glorified cooks that they become chefs because they are in charge of the position. And unfortunately, with this position as an executive chef, it comes like this temperamental and personalities. Ego. ego, and they kind of abuse people just because of their position, right?
Because they can.
Because they can, but because they are dealing also with a bunch of people that are there because they need the job. Mm-hmm. And so they take these hits in the chin just because they need the job and they're not already making a lot of money, right?
Right.
So that's why, luckily, I was redimensioned by my personal experience, because we lost also a lot of money in the business. Okay. And I put my feet back on earth and I say, okay, you need to get your priorities straight, and you need to understand where you're going. Because like this, because I was working like 16 hours a day, 14, 12, doesn't matter, right? And when you work so much, you don't really have that much time either to improve yourself.
Right, you're just kind of on autopilot, just rinse and repeat without even thinking about how can I get better. You just want to get through the orders for the day or something. Yeah.
So going back to your question, that's the thing that I learned the most, is to get my priorities straight, to understand that you're not a chef just because you spend a few months on a reality show. And I laugh because I never put chef on my social media, right?
It's just Luca.
It's Luca, right? But I see a lot of people that they've been in Masterchef. Many of them didn't even win, right?
Oh, and then they put chef on there.
Somehow they all become chefs after 2 months on the show, right? Or maybe after 1 week on the show. So it is now, if after I've been doing it for 8 years and I see what I can do, maybe it doesn't touch me anymore when people call me chef. I tell them still, you can call me Luca, right? I don't like the title. But that was the thing I learned the most. Also, I learned that, unfortunately, I think it's very hard to be a father and a husband and a restaurateur at the same time.
It's tough.
Right? So that for me was like, okay, I don't need to open a restaurant. I'd rather be a husband and a dad and find another job that I'll still be happy doing, but doesn't sacrifice my relationship inside my home.
That right there is pretty commendable, I do have to say, because I know one thing. I know your wife and children appreciate it, and I think it making that kind of sacrifice and making those kind of choices, I think it's a very mature thing of you to do that. Especially just it appears to me then that you're concerned about the future, your children, which are your children, and I see it all the time. You have people that become, let's say, very rich businessmen or businesswomen because they are spending 60 hours, 80 hours a week, and all they do is work, and they then don't have any time for their family, and then their kids, get confused, and then there's problems at home, and they don't know why. Well, it's because you can't properly run a family. It's very nice to have a father involved as a part of raising the children. So I give you big props for making that choice. See, you could have gone two ways. You could do that way, or you could say, all I care about is the money, period. The kids can figure it out, or that's why I have a wife, or whatever. That's a lot of people make that. I feel it's a rather selfish choice. So I think that's amazing, and I appreciate you sharing. And that's something that it's a really great, just whether people are in the cooking business or not, it's a great message, and just a core concept of life to think about. Having balance in your life and keeping your priorities straight. So that's great. And what about, if we could switch gears a little bit, can you tell us about something that you have recently made? Perhaps it's a new dish, a variation that you came up with, or maybe a new offering within your business concept or something?
Yes.
Because you always got to be evolving and improving, right?
There's a dish that I actually been working on for a couple of years.
A couple of years, wow.
Yeah, so I started with the idea a couple of years ago, and I remember because I also watch it. I see it on social media, and it changes a lot, and it changes until I'm not really 100% happy with that, right?
Okay.
And this is sea scallops that people like a lot, right? So it's sea scallops, and it started with a cauliflower puree, then it went with a corn puree, then it was with roasted beets and puree, which makes it a nice contrasting color.
Sure.
And then I changed the plating a few times, and then I went to eat in a restaurant, and they had, oh no, maybe I saw it in a cookbook, and they had quail eggs dipped in beet juice, and I was already using beets, so I said, let me try to do this quail egg. So it's 2.5 minutes soft boil, then you peel them and you put them in the beet juice, so they became beautiful Easter eggs, right? And then I go with this dish around the season. So it's fall time, is maybe broccoli puree that is nice and green, or cauliflower. But the thing I like the most, to me, right, it was in springtime with green peas. So I have green in the bottom, the sea scallops, absolutely 100% Gordon Ramsay style, which it does them with 50% salt and 50% curry.
Okay.
And then I have this baby roasted potatoes. Sometimes I roast them in duck fat, if I have duck fat around, with rosemary and garlic. And then this beautiful purple quail egg. And then I put a few dots of a very concentrated and thick corn puree. And then I finish them obviously with pea sprouts.
Pea sprouts.
Pea sprouts, right?
Like
And
from little green peas, the green pea
no, what
sprouts.
is it? So the leaves. How do you call the leaves?
Yeah, I mean, well, I guess I was trying to figure out, these are sprouts from peas. These, yeah, they are
No,
sprouts.
before, yeah,
Microgreens.
from the plant, right? There is some
Microgreens.
microgreens, but they're like, and then the dish is finished with a cumin foam.
Wow.
Yeah, it looks fancy because of the foam and because of the plating, but also
Yeah.
looks beautiful because of the color, because you have the yellowish of the scallops because of the curry. On the bottom you have the green of the pea puree, the purple, very bright purple of the beet juice quail eggs.
Nice.
And then the leaves and the potatoes that are usually, they have a nice char on the potatoes. So that was actually, we did it for a dinner on Saturday, and I was looking at that and I was kind of going through my head, and I said, like, yeah, it took 2 years to get it, but now I really, really like it. The other times I still liked it and it tasted delicious, but there was always something with the plating and with the other thing. Another dish that I worked a lot is the famous panna cotta from Masterchef.
Panna cotta.
Yeah, the one I made in the finale. I stopped making it after a few months after the show. I stopped making it because I didn't like it anymore. And then I took it back. I took it maybe 4 years ago, 3 years ago. I worked on it again, and I said, okay, why are you giving it up like that? Just think about it now and try to perfect it and to evolve it. And yeah.
And does it reflect on your customers? Do they like it as much as you do? I hope it's probably
that I can't do it for the dinners because it takes way too much time.
Oh, okay. It's just
yeah, I'll do that when I have some like special events, when people hire me to do chef tables, and maybe I go and do these events at the restaurant. So because it needs to be plate in a plate.
Mm-hmm.
So I need a lot of space, and you need to do it in advance to let the set. So when I go and do these events at the restaurants,
yes,
they have a lot of space in the fridges, the walk-in fridges, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that I'll make it. There are some dishes that they're just not made for my catering business because the preparation and the way they need to be stored, and also when I'm moving, that I'm moving like maybe for an hour and a half from the prep kitchen to the customer place. It wouldn't work, but that comes, you know, with a lot of years of practice. You know, back in the day, I'm sure I was making so many mistakes that were not good for the food itself, right? But
yeah, I totally get you there. It's the same in my business. Like there's certain tricks or routines that I save for certain occasions just because of the amount of prep or the conditions. It's just conditions aren't right, and that's part of being a professional. I think at anything, right? You have to understand there are certain things you say and do based on your conditions. You can't do everything in all conditions. I mean, that's ideal. But yeah, I would venture to guess that the people who are not pros, that are beginning, they want to do everything, or they want to try everything in every condition. But as you know, it's from experience, it's kind of might set you up for a big failure, because with all this prep, you don't have the space, the conditions aren't right, it becomes a big mess. So I get it. So you found what works for your catering. You have things that work for those conditions, and then this super fancy thing works for these other conditions. Got it. Okay, what about something favorite of Luca's that you've created in the past or cooked in the past, like one of your classic go-tos?
Well, it stays the short ribs.
Short ribs.
That's the dish that I made in the Masterchef finale, and it's actually the only dish that I still serve almost the way it used to be in the finale.
Nice.
But I actually made it more simple to make it more Italian, and I realized, but that's another thing that I realized, you know, less is more, and you don't need to be fancy all the time. And that's what I did at the beginning. After the show, I was making all these complicated dishes and tried to make them beautiful. And then somehow there was this reconnection with the basics and with the traditions, and like so much going back to that in my business I also offer a family style menu with classic Italian dishes, because I realized that not everybody wants the fine dining experience when they're meeting with their friends.
True.
It doesn't have to be stuffy. My dinners are never stuffy because it's a very relaxed and easygoing atmosphere. But the short ribs are for sure the dish that is my comfort food, and is the food that I always eat, and I'm happy to eat it. Like, and I've been doing it for 8 years. You know, is the same short ribs from the MasterChef finale, but they actually a not much simpler version, because they're more simple though from the MasterChef. They used to have also a watercress puree. Now that watercress puree just became a fresh arugula salad on top.
Yeah, why not? Right?
No, because it's more Italian. The watercress puree was taking me a lot of time all the time, and watercress is hard to source sometimes. But it was part of the thing after MasterChef that I learned, because I was trying to do everything fancy, everything restaurant style. But then, you know, Gordon Ramsay says all the time, less is more, and things don't have to be complicated all the time. And actually now the scallop dish that I was talking to you earlier, it may seem complicated, but the techniques to make the dish are very easy. It just takes a lot of steps because there are a lot of components, but the dish itself is not hard to make. But it was kind of reconnection for me to the traditions, to the comfort food, to the origins, right? Where I came from. And right now I even offer a family style menu, because I realized that not everybody wants the high price menus that I offer, and not everybody wants a very fancy meal when they go out and meet with their friends. Maybe they just want to eat at the table and have delicious food. So I offer things like meatballs in tomato sauce with the grilled sourdough, eggplant parmigiana, or risotto. We make a pasta with sausage and broccoli. Of course, lasagna. Or
Classics,
pasta.
yeah.
Yeah, pasta with braised oxtail. Of course, the short ribs, because they're still a classic, right? And then also a chicken dish with mushroom and cream sauce that, it's not the fancy thing, but believe it or not, it's what people ask me the most in the family style. Short ribs and that, or steak night, People even hire me for a steak night. If they're mostly men, they say, hey, can you do a steakhouse? Which back in the day, maybe I was like, no, it's not the type of food I do, because I'm I don't know, I'm a pretentious, fancy chef, right? But now it's like, okay, you want lasagna, and to me it was like, okay, what was I thinking? Because when I taste this thing and they are delicious, and it's like, there's nothing wrong with meatballs and tomato sauce. It's delicious, and there's no better food, to have around the table and be together with your friends or family.
So yeah, I mean, a lot of people think, even in my field too, sometimes you think, oh, the fancier, complicated tricks, the better. But it's the same truism in my art. The classics are a classic for a reason.
Right?
It's the same thing in the culinary field. They remain classics and stand the test of time because it just works. So it's kind of like, right, if it's not broke, why fix it? Why?
Yeah, Lydia Bastianich was a guest judge in our season, and she said something like that. She said, classics are called classics for a reason. Try to learn the basic first before going out of a tangent that you don't really even know why you're doing it, right? So learn the basics first. And then from there, when you learn the basic technique and also cuisines, then maybe you can go out and try to put your own spin to it.
Yep. Same thing here. Like when I started with magic, I would study all the old timers from like the 50s and 60s, and I would learn the thing verbatim exactly as they would say it, and then I would even say the performance in the same way. And then one of my teachers and mentors said, here's another cool one. It's in the beginning it's okay to copy, but eventually, once you've learned that foundation, you branch out. And one of my main mentors and teachers, Jeff McBride, would say, it's okay to imitate, but eventually you want to innovate. You imitate first, then you innovate later down the line. Once you've understood and have a good grip on those basics or classics. And clearly with your field, it's the exact same. So that's cool. We're on the same page there.
It's not granted, though, that everybody can do it. Because that's, I think, is the difference between a cook and a great chef in my business. It's not that anybody can become Thomas Keller or a Chef René, I think, from Noma. Now I forgot his last name, right? There are really, and that's to me is the big difference. The real chefs, they can do the most creative and crazy, intense things. Those are artists. They go out from being just regular chefs or cooks, and I think that those type of mentality and creative minds, they would be artists in any profession they pick, because they learn the basics first, and they did like everybody else did for many, many years, and then they started creating on their own.
You got it.
So that's a good analogy there, yeah.
You got it. Yeah, creativity comes in all shapes and forms, but at the heart of it, creativity remains just a I believe it's a state of mind. It's a state of mind. I believe it's one that anyone can tap into. And I think a lot of times people miss the boat because they convince themselves that they aren't creative. And then they, whether it's verbally or just this subconscious belief, and then it just shuts off all the other opportunities because they've already started with the belief that, oh, I'm not creative. I can't do it. So then they don't even try. And it's the ones that are always experimenting, and they make tons of mistakes along the way. But guess what? They flex that creative muscle, and they grow their art. So on that note, you've probably, I mean, you've mentioned a couple of mistakes, you know, with the different types of pasta. I always love to ask my guests, what would be your biggest, the worst DIY creative fail of all time? You know, perhaps in the kitchen, maybe something caught on fire. Do you have anything catching on fire stories, or any like really just stupid stuff that it just escalated? And
I had a grill once catch on fire. We were making a lot of chicken.
Okay.
And the grill was a propane grill, like the one that everybody has outside.
Okay, so you had a grill which is designed to produce heat, but it was too hot.
There was the fat from the chicken kept on dripping where the flame was.
Yeah.
And eventually the entire grill caught on fire. And I remember I had to take it with like kitchen towels and tongs and move the grill out of it and throw it in the grass. We were scared because it also was a homemade attachment, like when we put the propane in,
yeah,
the cables on our home. I was scared that somehow the propane, the fire went too close to the propane tank.
Yeah, that would be a whole other performance.
Yeah, it was very intense. It wasn't even, I don't think it was after Masterchef. It was before Masterchef. And it was at my parents' home in Italy. And I had a history of throwing parties. Every time I came back to America, I invited like literally, the first time was like 90 people.
Wow.
The second times was 70. And I remember one of those days I was cooking and we had two grills on, and we had this attachment to the propane.
Mm-hmm.
You know those camping burners?
Yeah, it's a portable stove, portable hot top.
Two giant, with the propane though, right?
An actual hot grill, okay.
Yeah, with the flames. They were put under a giant piece of very thick cast iron. So, and we made a homemade grill with that.
Wow, okay.
We used it for so long that the tube where the propane was attached to the grill, or to the burner, it got loose.
Oh, that's no good.
And literally there was this cable of propane with the flames going around and slamming on the floor and going.
So it was lit on the end?
Yes.
What?
Yes. You know, like the same thing that happened with the hose with the water when it's on and the water goes everywhere.
But it was fire.
But it was fire.
Whoa.
After that, I said, maybe we should do smaller parties next time.
Yeah, let's change it up. Wow, that's extremely dangerous. That's like a homemade flamethrower, but not in your control. It's just doing what it wants.
Yeah.
Just be lucky none of the chicken grease leaked on the floor, and then it lit that up, and then it caused the chicken.
Oh, forget about it.
That's no good. Okay. Right, Luca. So this is glad at least your house is still there after that incident with the.
Yeah, it was outside in a gazebo.
Okay, good. Well, and the gazebo's okay too?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Good. So if we were to just go back to the very beginning and just kind of encapsulate everything, I would always ask, what inspired you, Luca, to be a maker, meaning a chef, a cook, making great food for people? What was your original inspiration to just start doing this? Was it family, or did you see something?
I found myself in the middle of it. When I started, when I was young, working in restaurants, it was just the easiest job to get. Also, I started working in restaurants when I was still in school. I would do summer seasons, and also I would work in weekends when they were high season, like holiday season. They asked me to work like Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I was still going to school. But then the cooking, also obviously, I worked 10 years in New York City in restaurants. And I believe, if you have a little bit of ambition, I always thought I was going to own my own restaurant one day. And then after Masterchef, as we were talking about it before, I realized that the lifestyle was not the best. If you want to raise children, if you want to have a family, and I say this, I said this a few times. There is this proverb that I like that they say, your life starts when you realize the reason why you are living. And what inspired me the most are my children, because my life rotates around theirs, which means that everything I do, most of the things I say, and most of the things I do, they're all around them. So for me, I really found my,
your why.
Exactly. I really found my why when my kids were born. And I really, I take this, it's very, very important for me. And the fact that I know I'm very fortunate that I get to be home with them all the time is also part of the way that we want to educate them. And my wife has a great job. She works from home, so she's around too. So we're both very participating in their lives.
Nice, that's great.
I worked so many years in the restaurants, and I saw so many of the restaurant owners being always there at the restaurant and not spending time with their families. And to be honest with you, I think that many of them like to have that excuse. I can't be home because I need to be at the restaurant, right? So it's taken also as a escape from the regular life, from staying home to your wife and stay home and play with your kids. Because everybody, it's easy now, when they're 15, 16, 17, it's easy to hang out with your kids. But when they're, I have a blast with them. So I play, I'm a big kid myself, but when the kid is 1 year old or a few months old, is 2 months old.
That's challenging.
That's very challenging, right? So I can see how some fathers would say, I need to work. I can't be home and help you feed them or change diapers, right? And I think that affects a lot the relationship,
Oh yeah.
And I say that I make this decision of not working full time in the restaurant business. It's not just because of the kids. It's also because I want to be a good husband. And you can't be a good husband if you're like 16 hours a day at work, because it's like, you leave him. And that's what I did actually with the food truck. With the food truck, it was like, okay, I'm working too much. And luckily it took me 8 months to realize it. Valentino was 6 months old and I was never home. And I said, my wife had Luca and a 22 months old and a 6 months old. I said like, nah, I'm not going to be that guy. And I always wonder, maybe the food truck was doing good. Imagine if the food truck was making good and I open a restaurant after the food truck because the food truck was very successful. but at the end, you're kind of in charge of your path somehow, right? Obviously, there are some things that you're not in control with, but maybe if I wasn't happy and I wasn't making enough money with my dinner with Luca, I would be looking to do something else. But I work 2 or 3 nights a week. I mean, obviously, it takes a couple of days to prep.
Sure.
But I have that flexibility that I can prep when the kids are asleep, right?
Yeah, that's nice.
We're done with their day, and I don't have to sacrifice spending time with them or taking care of them.
Mm-hmm.
And also we have my mother-in-law lives close by, so there are things you are in charge of your path, right?
Right.
So you need to get to the point where you need to be happy, and you need to understand what you're doing, what your reason in his life, and also you have to have some sort of
purpose,
but also you need to be able to realize what you're doing right now, how it's going to impact your life and the lives of who's around you in the next 3, 4, 5, 10 years, right?
Yeah.
But you can, I used to be young and not very smart and say day by day. No, day by day doesn't work. Day by day doesn't work. I mean, it may work when you're 20, but
not with a wife and a life.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to actually have a life, like a lot of restaurant managers probably don't, due to the insane hours and the commitment and connection. Yeah. Wow. Well, this a lot of tough choices to be made, but you've made them, and it seems like you're at peace with them, and it was the right decision for you. And like I said, I know your wife and kids greatly appreciate that. Is there anyone? So basically, having children changed just kind of your whole mindset and course about what's important, your priorities, and how you want to proceed. And that's the sign of a good parent. That's what my mom told me, actually. She said, "Sean, when I had you, everything changed. My way of thinking, everything. It teaches you how to be selfless rather than selfish, which a lot of people are when they're young and don't have any kids. It's easy to be selfish." So that's a great sign of growing in maturity there. Who do you look up to in this culinary space? Are there specific people that you respect and look up to besides Gordon Ramsay, of course? That's probably a given.
There are a few chefs that I like for the way that they work, and their job ethic, and also their creativity. Cookbooks for me are like books for people who like novels or romance. Like you read people that read a lot of books. They have some authors that like better than others. Some writers that they like better than others.
Authors, okay, yes. Sorry, I misheard that. Got it. We're good.
Authors. And for me, it's the same with cookbooks. I have a lot of cookbooks from chefs that I ate at their restaurants, and I was impressed, and I bought it. Right. I'm looking at the cookbooks right now, and some others is just because they're famous. Maybe I never ate at the restaurant, so I never met them. But I really take inspiration from the way that they treat their ingredients and the way they make the food, right? But at the end, I'm not looking for getting a Michelin star. I mean, I don't have a restaurant. The reviews I get, they're not from food critics, they're from my customers. So the bottom line for me is to make good food, to use good ingredients, right? And that's it. I don't take the inspiration for my real life from chefs, but maybe I like more business people, or I like, in general, professionals that I like, that maybe they are remarkable for what they built on their business, but they also carry themselves in a very good way. So it can be a mix, right? There are a lot of very good, I'm trying to think, chefs that I really like a lot. I'm looking at no, those are the two. There's a guy from Italy that's called Chef Scarello. There's 2 Michelin stars, and I absolutely love the way he treats his food and the way the food looks. And also another guy I like a lot is Chef Michael Anthony from Gramercy Tavern in New York. But that's because I used to go in a lot of his restaurants. No, to eat a lot at Gramercy Tavern. I used to be a big fan of David Chang. I liked his food a lot. Then I can't watch his shows anymore because he curses all the time, and I don't want my kids to watch his shows. So no. But we used to go to Momofuku in New York a lot.
David Chang.
Yeah, David Chang from Momofuku. He built an empire. Yeah, he has a lot of restaurants everywhere. Few cookbooks. He has one in LA, mostly New York City, Las Vegas. And he had his own show on Netflix. Wow. Which I don't remember the name. He did a couple of shows on Netflix. The first one was very successful. The other ones, I don't think as much, but he's an icon. Like he started maybe 20 years ago selling, the first restaurant he opened was a noodle shop. And then from that, it just like bam, bam, bam.
Exploded, yeah.
He's a genius. Anthony Bourdain talked about him as scary smart. Scary smart. And he's one of a kind, and that's why we were talking about there's not many Gordon Ramsay. Right. There's not many Danny Meyers around, there are a few that made their impact in America, and David Chang is one of them, and I like him a lot. Nice. But no, it's just about, following people that they, exactly as you said, they can inspire you, right? Right. It doesn't have to be just professional. Sure. I think you learn more for how people carry themselves out, the way they handle life, the way they speak, and also the way they are in their personal life. Yeah, lots of times the personal life reflects on how they treat their business. Yeah, I would say it's almost like, you treat your business almost how you treat your kids, with care and respect, and vice versa. So, well, this was fascinating. It was amazing to kind of open the proverbial cookbook of Luca for this chat here. This is, I think a lot of people can, especially from what you said about the importance of priorities with family. And I know that the Italian culture, because I'm half Italian myself, they're really big on family. It's all about the family. It's, don't get away from your family. Like the American culture has kind of, it's like once you're 18, you can do whatever you want. You don't need your family anymore. You're independent. You can, okay, but there's certainly something to be said about having a strong connection with the family. And I appreciate that. And I think my audience needs to hear that, and they'll appreciate that as well. So in conclusion, how can my listeners and viewers learn more about dinners with Luca, and just your legacy and career? Yeah, they just follow me on social media, mostly Instagram and Facebook, at Luca Manfe. All my URL are the same. I do a little bit of TikTok, but I don't have enough time.
I get it. Because that's why they call it TikTok, because it takes up all your TikTok and your time away.
Yeah.
That's what I think. But Luca how do you say the last name properly?
Manfe. So Manfe.
Manfe.
Yep. Luca Manfe.
So follow Luca Manfe on all the social media platforms, just like I am on Instagram. The links you can see there below that will appear, and they'll also be in the description with links to other things that we talked about during this interview. So, wow, Luca, this was an absolute pleasure to hang out with you and to have you share some of your life stories, knowledge, and experience with the Making Magic audience. So I really appreciate your time here today with us. And
thank you for having me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Luca. And we'll see you guys on the next episode.